Hey everybody, I wanted to give a quick introduction to this episode of Indie Chat. This episode is going to be featuring my friend Sam from Firaxis. I've known him for a little while. He's a really awesome guy, and he fortunately lives actually really close to me. I'm only about 45 to 50 minutes away from Firaxis Games, and he lives pretty close there, so he was able to drive up and basically spend the evening at my house so we could record this video. So we had a blast, and it was a really great time, and yeah, just wanted to let you guys know where this video is sort of coming from. So, enjoy. Hey everybody, Andrei from CFX Films here. This is episode 2, so thanks for tuning in. With us we have a very special guest, Sam Batista from Firaxis. He is the UI programmer. Thank you, Sam, for being with us.
Thanks, I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. So, how did you first get into game development?
Well, I think I have to start like when I first started getting into games, because I was a fan before I was a developer. When I was young, I was a small, scrawny kid, and I got picked on a lot. So I just kind of found video games as a form of escape. In a strange way, it gave me like some solace and some of the things that I was missing in real life. And that made me a little bit of an introvert, I think. It contributed to that, but at the same time, it just made my childhood so much more enjoyable. And then when I got to high school and I got the time to think about what I wanted to do with my life, and I just happened to find an ad on a magazine that said, hey, come out to Full Sail, become a video game developer. And in my mind, like, I never thought about that. It's like, whoa, you can make games and get paid doing that? Like, that's a job? I was just mind blown, and that was the moment. I knew it. You know, my parents didn't want to let me go because it was super expensive. It was far away. I had no idea what I was doing, but I just twisted our arm, and I didn't give them a choice. I had to become a game developer, so I did. I went to school, and I got a degree in game development, and here we are.
That's pretty awesome. So, how did you end up at Firaxis?
So after I graduated college, it was actually right during the recession in 2009. So it was kind of rough. It was difficult to find a job. I spent 6 months just full-time applying. Like, that was my job, applying to jobs. I sent out hundreds of resumes. Eventually, I landed a job in Pittsburgh in a small startup company called SimOp Studios. They were working on a game engine on the web. So you just go to a website and you could just bring up, like, it was a game engine that you could just script stuff and make your game on a website. It was kind of a novel idea, but during that time, it was the same time that Unity came out. Unity was getting a little bit popular. Like, I remember having discussions internally about, oh man, Unity's doing this, Unity's doing that, like, we have to do that. And as you know, Unity just steamrolled the competition. It exploded. It got huge. They did a really good job with the engine, and that's why. So that company kind of imploded because of Unity, I think. Making a game on a web browser is just not something people are really familiar with. So I think the approach was maybe not the right approach there. So when the company kind of went under, I was really lucky because I left right before they hit bankruptcy, and I got hired by Timegate Studios, a company in Houston, Texas, that were making a first-person shooter for the Xbox 360. It was Section 8 Prejudice. That's a project that I got hired for. I got hired as a UI programmer because I had a little bit of experience working with Flash. And luckily enough, it was just like such a random chance thing. And yeah, that was it. That was my door. I was in. You know, once you get the first job in AAA industry, is much easier. So I finished Section 8 Prejudice. I actually completed that project. It took about a year. And when I finished it, I was just so lucky. Like, I got called by a recruiter, and they were telling me they had a position at Firaxis Games in Maryland for somebody with my skill set. And my family lives in Connecticut, so it was convenient for me. It was a much shorter distance to visit my family. So I said yes. You know, there was no reason for me to say no. And Firaxis has been awesome. It's been a great place to work at. So it was just luck. I was just super lucky. Like, let's just be honest here. I was lucky, and I managed to have the skills that they were looking for at the time.
Was your opinion or assumptions about game development different when you first entered the industry?
Yeah, big time. Big time. Like, when you go to school to do anything, I think, like, especially games, but in my case, games, but to do anything, you kind of have, like, this ideal version of what it's like to do your job. When I got out and I started working at Timegate Studios, I got to see a little bit of the dark side of the industry, see how it operated. I hate to use the term, but it felt like a sweatshop when it came to hiring people and firing people, and how they did the reviews and the milestones and everything. So I could give you an example. When I got hired, in the same 6 months that I got hired, like 10 people got hired, 6 people got fired. Like, it was kind of an internal joke that, oh man, like, there goes another one or something like that. And the reason for that is because the managers there demanded that the whole team stay late and work late until 10 or 11. They demanded that they came in on the weekends because we were on an extremely aggressive timeline. Like, we had to complete a full AAA Unreal Engine game in less than a year. I worked a lot. Like, I worked 7 days a week from 9 to 9, and some days from 9 to like 12. And I felt pride in that. Like, I felt good to be working that much. But man, after like 3 or 4 months, I was burned out. Like, I hated that job. I hated the game. I hated the team. And the morale of the team just took a nosedive. And anybody who's played that game, they're not going to say it's terrible. It's not a terrible game, but it was not a good game. Like, it was subpar product. And I think a lot of that came down to time management, personnel management, and overall just the team being demoralized and being worked too much. So that's how, like, I had this idea that making games was a lot of work but fun. And then when I got to Timegate, I learned that it's all work, no fun, just work. And it drained me, and I was ready to toss in the towel. But then I got a job at Firaxis, thankfully, and I learned the other side, where it's much more like the management team is much better. They put people's happiness and people's well-being on top of everything, because they know if the team is not happy, if the team is demoralized, if they're having a lot of turnover, it's difficult to complete any project. And when you have people that work together for long periods of time, they just work better. Like, they take less time to get things done. They trust each other more, so there's not so much questioning and like, oh, why did they do it this way? Like, it smooths things up a lot. And so I got to see the dark side at Timegate, and then I got to see a much better alternative at Firaxis.
Do you think that could happen with an indie team, an indie company?
Oh yeah. I think it happens a lot to a lot of indie developers.
I mean, like the working with each other and being able to trust each other a lot more after so many years. I guess, do you think having a smaller team makes a huge difference in that, or does size really matter?
So I would say small teams are not immune to any of these issues. Like, I've seen cases of indie games or indie teams that overscope, or that think, oh, I could just hire somebody else to do it, like, and don't value that personal connection, don't value the team cohesiveness, and then see their projects crash and burn, or see their team members leave and then have to struggle to find a replacement. That's another thing with a small team. There's usually not a manager, like a dedicated manager, or if there is, it's like a producer or a designer. And if you have like 3 or 4 other people working with you, and there's a stress issue, or there's a personality issue, or there's any issue, you could just go to them and be like, hey, I have an issue. Like, let's work this out, or let's cut this feature, let's do that thing. In a bigger company, there's usually more bureaucracy, so you kind of have to go through this guy to get to talk about this thing, or it's a little bit less personal.
Would you go indie if you could?
I definitely would. I think it's the ultimate dream, the ultimate goal to, create something that's yours, to work on something that you care about deeply to form your own company. It's kind of a risky thing to do because a lot of times you don't know how long it's going to take to make games, to make a game. A lot of times you don't even have a concrete idea of what it's going to look like in the end. And then if you go indie, you might need some help. So you might need money to pay those people to help you. So it's risky, and at this time in my life, like, it's unfortunate that I don't have the capability to do that. I'm not in a position to do that, but I think I definitely would. I would go indie if I could, but the answer, or the deeper answer, is that in order for me to be able to do that, like, there's so many stars would need to align. It would need to be like a perfect sequence of events for me to just be like, to feel secure. And it's not like I doubt my capacity to make a game. It's just, I know how long it takes. I know how much work it takes. I've seen a lot of indie developers start and then crash and burn. I've advised teams that were in the process of finding team members or getting a concrete idea. Like, every little step of the process takes time, takes effort, takes work. From the design stage, to the documentation stage, to the implementation stage, to the iteration stage, through the quality assurance stage. Like, there's a lot of processes that go into making a complete game. And in order for you to compete in the marketplace, in order for you to be able to continue making games, your game needs to be successful. So you need to run your game development studio as a business. Like, even if your studio is just one person or two people, you need to have a little bit of a business know-how, you need to prepare to spend some money, or to go out to events and market your game, or to get promotional assets, get promotional art. If you're going to put it on the asset store or app store, you need to get some icons or something like that. Those things take money. Or if you can do it yourself, then it's going to take more time. Like, if you're going to do things yourself, you're going to need time to do that. But in order to have time to do that, you either need to live rent-free and somehow have food for free every day, and then you could do it, or you need to save up some money in order to be able to do that for a while. I think it's important that you prepare for a successful outcome, right? Like, that's the critical step, is preparing for a successful outcome. And in making a game, a complete game from start to finish, from design to production to iteration to changing, all those things, and then marketing it and everything, like, you need to prepare for each one of those things. So I think if you're gonna be serious about being an independent game developer, you need to think about what you need to be doing to prepare yourself for a successful outcome. And if that successful outcome is making an adventure game and for a console or something, then you need to be maybe making a smaller adventure game for the PC first, or maybe making a smaller console game that's not a big adventure title. If you're just a guy with an idea, nobody's gonna want to work with you, because they know that there's everybody has ideas. Everyone's capable of coming up with ideas. But not everyone understands what it takes to make a game, has the experience required to make a game, and has taken the time to prepare to be successful making a game.
So what do you wish you knew when you first got into game development?
I think when I started, I had this idea that I was gonna, do a little bit of everything, be a generalist. That's what they call. You're like, hey, I can program some gameplay, I can program some AI, I can program some of this. Like, I already knew how to program. I knew I wanted to be a programmer. But what I didn't know is that in the AAA game industry, because teams are so large and these projects take so long, it's really important for developers to hire people that have highly specialized skill sets. And I didn't realize that, so it took me a long time to kind of find my niche, find what I could be good at doing, user interface. And it's really, really important to have that in mind when you're getting your education and preparing to go out in the game industry. Focus on making whatever you're doing as awesome as possible. Compete with some of the best out there, and then people will be interested in working with you because you'll be able to compete you'll be able to bring to the table something that will allow their product to stand out.
So we'll end with one final question. What would you say to young developers trying to break into the industry?
This is gonna be kind of break your heart a little bit, but I gotta lay it down to you, the reality. Recently, there's been a little bit of a proliferation of game development tools. It's easier than ever for somebody to make a game. At the same time, the number of companies making games at the highest level of fidelity has been shrinking. So there's fewer studios making huge games, but a lot more games entering the market. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So what that does is it puts a lot of pressure on individuals to stand out and to compete in terms of skill sets, in terms of experience and knowledge. I would say the biggest thing that you could do to give yourself a really good advantage of working in the game industry is finding a specialization, finding something that you like, graphics programming, AI programming. And I keep saying programming because if you know programming, it's easier to break into a programming role than it is to break into an artist or a designer role, just because there's fewer high-skilled programmers than there are high-skilled artists or designers just out there. So if you want to stand out in your resume when you send it out to a company, if you want to stand out, you need to do what's beyond that. You need to take the next step in terms of challenging yourself. So if you're familiar with Unity and C#, taking the next step in challenging yourself would be either to work with C++, work with a more advanced complex language, learn about memory management, learn about pointers, learn about those things that C# abstracts away, makes it easier for you. Mm-hmm. So go a level deeper. Go find out what technologies are powering these engines, and become familiar with them. So that could mean, hey, go work with the Unreal Engine. Make a game using Unreal. Challenge yourself to work with C++ instead of working with C#. That will look great in your resume. Made a game with C++ and Unreal. People will look at that and be like, wow, this kid, he took the time to do that. That's impressive. Versus, dozens of other resumes that have made a game in Unity or made 2 games in Unity, made a game for iOS. It's just going to stand out when you take the time to challenge yourself and do something that most people would just not care to do because it doesn't really help them in any way, or it doesn't help them complete their game and actually make you take longer to complete your game. But at the end of the day, you're going to come out with a skill set that less people have, which makes you more attractive. With that said, I'll just be honest, C++ is the de facto language of the game industry. Almost every game engine uses C++ as a base layer because it's really fast and it lets you optimize the code easily. So what I would say is if you're really serious about getting a job in the game industry, you need to think about what you can do to stand out, because the competition's fierce. And it's not just for any game job, it's for almost every job. It's a competition, the job market. The employers are looking to hire the most capable person that they can, because they know that it's a long-term investment. So if you take the time to develop the skills and take the time to give yourself an edge versus your peers, it's gonna pay off. It's gonna be rewarding.
Yeah, that's definitely something I've thought about a while too, and I have talked about a similar topic like that on my channel too. So, but I definitely like the way you worded it.
I know it could be a little bit heartbreaking in the sense that
I mean a lot of developers haven't thought about that before. A lot of them that sort of crushes the dream a little bit. But I think what a good thing that it does is all those people that say I want to be the idea guy, it really sort of just shoves reality in their face. It's like, no, this is how it works. So it's really good. I think people really do need to see that. I think that's important.
I think it destroys the dream, but it opens doors in terms of, in terms
more realistic dreams.
Yeah, more realistic dreams. Exactly. It allows you to move beyond what you thought you could accomplish to actually getting to what you can accomplish.
It becomes less of a dream and more of a goal.
Yes, precisely. And that's something that's really important. I think a lot of, especially younger folks, need to focus on that. and develop, tailor what they spend their time on doing so that it helps them down the road instead of just making them feel good at the time. And I know that's really difficult, especially for somebody who just wants to make games. Like, I just want to make games. I'm not going to say if you just want to make games, then, make super hard games with C++. Like, you don't need to do that, because maybe what you want to do is become a game designer. In which case, man, make a lot of games. Make paper games, make board games, make all kinds of games. Don't just be shoehorned into making like video games with Unity. Make a ton of games. The more games you make, the better, because as a designer, you're gonna understand game systems, you're gonna understand reward loops, you're gonna understand, you're gonna understand a lot of things that go into game design, player retention, things like that, getting players to not become frustrated, and see other people play your game. If you like programming, if you think maybe you want to do programming for a living, then you want to find something within the whole programming spectrum to specialize in. Graphics programming.
And there's also like the emotional side too. Like a lot of good game designers said that do more emotional focused games too. There's the whole other aspect. Like, you have to have life experience in order to understand certain things about game design too. So,
yeah, it could be life experience, or I think I'll give you a good example. I watched some talks by Jennifer Chen of that game company. He made Journey.
Yeah.
I mean, the stuff that this guy talks about, like,
I've actually talked to him about it. What I just told you, he's one of the developers. He actually talked to him about the whole thing about the emotional. You have to have this emotional understanding. So that's what he was saying about it. So
yeah, but the fascinating thing to me is he definitely had that going into the development, the desire to make like an emotionally involved game, but the steps that they took to accomplish that are very like well defined and very well thought out. Like, for example, the whole game has like a very interesting color palette, where in the beginning it's really warm and really sunny and bright, and then as the game progresses it becomes colder. You go into these areas that are cold. All those things are like very purposeful. Like, it's clear that somebody studied color design, or color, what that does to people. Like, so what I mean is the designers of that game had to gain skills in terms of design, photography, or interaction, or gameplay. They had to gain the skills in order to deliver such an emotional tale. And that goes again into the preparedness, where I actually remember seeing some prototypes of that game where it was like top down, and they're working out the communication between players and just not working out. So you see them going in the wrong direction, and then realizing that it's not going to work out, and trying something different. But so many things about games are so purposeful. Like, somebody has to think about it and do it in a way that's going to get them to their goal. And so that's when it comes down to being a professional in the game industry. That's what you have to do as well. You need to think about what it is that you want to do, understand the steps required to get there, and then start working on one at a time. Do this first and then do that.
Yeah. Well, that's a good place to end. So, Sam, thank you so much for taking the time to come here. This is really great. You had a lot of great answers, and I really hope that all of you guys who are watching will benefit from this and feel inspired, because there's a lot of really true things said in this interview, and it is a tough industry. It's a tough industry to break in, and it's a really popular industry. But for so many young developers out there, from what you hear now, from what you heard from this interview, you can, think about it, and really think about what you want to do and what you really want to get good at. Because I definitely agree with everything you said, that it is really important that you got to be able to specialize.
One thing that I'll close out though is that I'll agree, the game industry is really difficult. It's really complex. It has a lot of like highly technical things about it, graphics and real time and interactivity and things like that. So if you just like love games, but maybe you don't think you could get a job there, you could still like try to make games on the side in whatever skill sets you pick up, whether it's programming or art or level design or art design, art stuff. Like, all those skills are just going to be valuable in life, working with computers or in creative fields, because games have such a wide range of They're similar to so many things. They're similar to movies. They're similar to books if you're like into storytelling and writing. They're similar to role-playing games. They're similar to board games in some cases. So there's a lot of overlap. So if you just love to like make games and play around with game development tools, or if you're just interested in programming and you make games to learn about programming, those are such useful skills to have. So, keep making games. They're awesome and they really do matter.
All right, thanks for watching, guys. You can subscribe if you like this. Comment below what you think. Give your thoughts on what do you think about what we've said here in this video, or mostly Sam. Sam did most of the talking, so thank you for that. I didn't have to say much. Yeah, again, subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram. I have all my social media links. You can keep up to date with what I'm doing. And yeah, so again, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.